It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah. Man, are you guys glad you did what I told you? Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad? Did you get silver? Did you? Maybe some gold? Did you? Well, I bet you wish you did if you didn't, because damn. But that is, an observation of what? What does that mean, James? I mean, all of a sudden, all these metals and commodities inflate. What is going up? That means what?
Well, as you know, and I'm assuming most of your audience knows, but for those who don't, the inflation in the price of gold does not mean that anything has changed with regards to gold. It means that there is a deflation that is happening in the value of the dollar. So that's what that means. And I don't think we have to explain to anyone, what this is ultimately about. It's about the long, slow demise of the dollar. And maybe it's like the, Ernest Hemingway going bankrupt, first gradually, then all of a sudden, something like that. Well, here we are.
Yeah, it won't happen all at once, but it will happen overnight. It's Monday. Well, it didn't happen Monday because it was Columbus Day. So it kind of pushed off a little bit. But we have a lot of really big news, and we wanted to go over. And I wanted to just go ahead and just hit some of the highlights and get James's view on. I mean, oh my God! All right, we had just happens to be at the top now. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, explained it to the press and said, you're not allowed to be walking around and making buds with everybody and kind of sign this here pledge to do whatever. I'm not even sure what, So they, all up in arms that, you mean we can't, walk the halls? I mean, CIA lets us, So I'm just wondering what your thought is on Hegseth and Trump going, them was the olden days, and we're not woke anymore, and we're going to go whip ass because we're about ready to go whip ass. I mean, are they in preparation for a war, or are they just trying to change the culture? What do you think's going on?
Maybe he's just trying to get people to not report when he accidentally joins journalists to group chats on Signal anymore. Something like that.
Right.
You know what this story ultimately shows, for whatever it is and whatever people might be upset about it, but what it ultimately shows is that the media oligopoly is obviously part of the gangster system itself. And it has only been allowed because it more or less plays ball in the right way. And now they're just exercising their authority to say, hey, you're not allowed anymore. You got to sign away any pretense of even trying to look for any information from us. So, I'm not, it's not like I'm crying tears for the poor, big media outlets, but right. It is, it's on its face ridiculous and stupid. And the American people, you would suspect, would care about such a thing in any other era of American history. But this is 2025. This is like number 8 on the list.
Don't care. There's another thing, when Trump, we're going to talk about his peace deal, whatever that is. And, if Hamas doesn't disarm, we're going to have to go disarm them. I mean, they're not disarming. As soon as they have the ceasefire kind of thing, you got Hamas coming out with guns that weren't supposed to have. And they go out, they're lining up collaborators. The Vichy's French is getting shot in the head. And, they're standing on the streets doing what. So then it's going to be, this is what first thing that popped in my mind if Hamas and there isn't an uprising or them going around taking retribution on whatever the heck they're doing, Netanyahu'd make sure they did. You know what I mean? There's just you can't believe a damn thing that's going on, and we saw along the beach because there's really no other way to get there. I mean, it's just the roads and everything's all bombed out. All these refugees, I guess, former residents in northern Gaza are just going back to their rubble pile. And the whole idea, the greater Israel was always like what is it? It's just east of the Red Sea. Is that the Sudan? What's that desert there? It's kind of part of Egypt. Anyway, they want all that, all of Israel, some 11, all the way to the Euphrates. This has always been the greater Israel thing, and I'm not seeing that stopping. Trump goes to Israel, and everybody, yay, Trump, we love Trump, and he should get the peace prize because he's a peace guy or something. And then he said something like, you know what you guys should do? You should pardon my bud Netanyahu. I mean, come on, at this point, who cares? What difference does it make? But anytime they mention Netanyahu, the crowd was booing, and it seemed like there was, the Arabs, Palestinians, Israelis, everybody was there cheering the young people and so on. They didn't like them, some Netanyahu. How's he going to resurrect his reputation? What do you think he's got planned?
Well, I don't know, obviously, but I would say that the time-old tactic of any would-be authoritarian ruler is always to get people to rally around the flag during times of crisis. And obviously, we saw that trick attempted to be pulled in 2023, October 7th, but it didn't quite work out long-term in the way that perhaps Netanyahu would have wanted. Of course, it did work in the short term. But longer term, I think people have seen through the trick. So generally speaking, we see these people try to fail forward with some sort of even more spectacular incident. And so I certainly don't think that this Gaza ceasefire is the end of whatever, we've seen over the past couple of years. I think we're going to continue to see this playing out in the future. And yes, isn't it convenient that now, well, we had the ceasefire, but Hamas is out there killing people on the streets, so we got to go in and finish the job, which was what Netanyahu wanted all along. So I don't know. I'm not exactly fearful for Netanyahu and his position in the Israeli government. He's been floating around in power in various forms for 3 decades now. I don't think this is going to be the thing that ultimately topples him.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. One of the other things is Jared Kushner and Ivanka, they're all coming back into the fray. And what is Jared Kushner's thing? I mean, why was he tapped on the shoulder to get into it? What's his connection? How's that going?
Oh, well, I mean, he is an avowed Zionist who, what's the story? He spent time in Netanyahu's home, or Netanyahu spent time in his home? I can't remember. Way back before he was even Trump Jr. in law. So, Kushner has his own Zionist proclivities and obviously cares about what's happening with Israel from a long time ago. So it's no surprise that his fingerprints are all over what's going on in the Middle East right now. That was his role in the first Trump administration. That's his role, obviously, at this point as well. So no surprise there.
We had Qatar got bombed when they had the peace negotiations, supposedly, and the Hamas leader there, and Israel, bombs them, blows up their hotel room, kills them, whatever, during peace negotiations in Qatar. Well, then that's like, what? That's some balls right there. So then you have Trump handing the phone to Netanyahu and apologize, say you're sorry, come on, Then we get Qatar trying to give Trump, I don't know what's going on with the 747 that they're, converting into Air Force One. I don't know if that's just trolling or they're doing it or what. And then now we got Qatar gets some kind of access to a U.S. military base or building or something. Like, I tell you, James, being a publisher of Freedom's Phoenix, I get so much stuff that comes through and people send me and we put up and everything. And I go, that's pretty, I should read it. Nah, I'm good. I don't care. It's just so, what do you know about this Qatar thing here, military base in the middle of the country? What's up?
Not much more than you. I have seen the headlines as well, but I haven't read deeply into it. But just glancing at the AP right now, So Hegseth announced Friday morning that the federal government had reached an agreement with Qatar to build a facility at an Air Force base in Idaho. And the facility being built at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho isn't a separate base at all. It's a group of buildings that will be built to handle training and maintenance for Qatari troops. And the agreement with Qatar has been in the works for years. So there you go.
Years? Really? Okay.
Squadron operations and hangars for the F-15QA, because that's the Qatari version of the jet that they bought through foreign military sales. It's definitely still a U.S. Air Force base. Okay, don't worry, guys.
Well, it's like, it reminds me, I was thinking, I'm going, well, we've been doing, what was it, the School of the Americas that was training terrorists and everything in, I don't know, Alabama, southeastern America somewhere. And I just, how much do I got to look? How much do I got to care? This is where freedom good, government bad, bad, bad. It just adds more bad. Look, Ernie, look at this thing. And I'm going, because they can. I mean, I'm really losing interest. So, but I was doing a show with a young woman, and she was really, that's what I hate about libertarians. You guys don't care, and you don't want to, and you're not in with it. And I'm going, well, why? I don't trust the election process. I don't believe in delegating my personal authority or my family or anything to Washington or anywhere else. It's just, what should I be doing? What should I be thinking? What should my biggest thing I want to pimp is open source education.online with Professor James Corbett. Oh yeah, she didn't put professor up here, but she put it on the site. You're professor. We're professoring the crap out of Corbett.
Good. Ernie, I think I'm kind of in line with where you're at right now, because like people trying to ask me about my opinion about Charlie Kirk assassination or something, as if I'm scrutinizing every frame of the footage or what have you. I don't know. I know it's probably not what they're telling us it is. I think we'll probably never actually get to the truth of the matter, because there has been and will be no serious investigation. It's probably a lie, and it probably had something to do with Kirk's change of heart in recent times. But I don't know, and am I allowed to say I don't care? Because, again, I don't think this is the defining, at least for me, for people who were big fans or think that this is important or are following these kind of twists and turns in the political sideshow. Great, good for you, go ahead, I'm not stopping you. But personally, I'm more interested in the big picture issues, and that's maybe why the Corbett Report really isn't about the daily news. And hey, here's this new news story that just popped up. It's generally about examining the big picture issues. Like, for example, you might have seen someone just wrote in to ask a question about the fascies that are all over Washington. And so I answered by talking about the history of the fascies and where they come from and fascism and what that actually means, et cetera, et cetera. I know that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's my cup of tea, because I'm more interested in the big picture issues that have been around with us for thousands of years than I am about the news of the week.
When I first had that explained to me, I was in Washington, D.C., and as a guest of Ron Paul, they had us go in and got a tour of the Capitol. They had one of their young women aides, kind of gave us a tour. And on that, I was with Peter Schiff and his brother. Peter Schiff's brother, God, I can't remember his name. I think it was Andrew or something like that. And, or Lawrence, I can't remember. But he was a really nice guy. He was really informed, and he knew he was going to do this, so he kind of boned up on the House Representatives chamber and all this stuff. Well, behind the speaker, you'll see, and I'll have you explain what a fascia is, but, the fascias and so on. But there were all of these headshots or busts or whatever around the perimeter of the House Representatives. And it was like Moses and, a bunch of the, Plato or whatever. I mean, there was a lot of historical characters around, and I'm going, what up with that? They were lawgivers, It's all about the law. And then, the fascia was prominent there. And go ahead and explain what fascia means. A fascia is.
So, a fasci is a bundle of sticks that's tied together and generally has an axe attached at the top. And it was actually originally Etruscan, but probably popularized by the Roman Republic, actually, even before or after the Empire. Even in the times of the Roman Republic, the Roman magistrates would walk around with essentially bodyguards, thugs, to protect them and enforce whatever they thought was the law. And these lictors, these bodyguard thugs, would carry around fasci, and it was literally bundles of sticks with an axe head on it, so that they could beat people with the bundle of sticks and or chop their heads off with the axe. That was literally what it was used for. And if you go back and read some of the sources from Roman times, I mean, the Romans did not like these lictors. They were not popular. They were routinely made fun of and were thought of as low-class thugs, essentially, brute power enforcers of state power, essentially. And that is what the fasci indicates. That's what it means. That is what it has mean for thousands of years and continues to mean in various contexts. Now, the supporters of the American fasces will say, don't worry, guys, it's not like that. And it's not necessarily about Mussolini and the Italian fascists, although there was a lot of fasces that were added to Washington post-Mussolini, post-1922. But they'll say, no, this is more about the bundle of sticks representing strength through unity. House divided against itself cannot stand, blah, 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 all that kind of strain of American political rhetoric. And it's more about, like, the Aesop's fable about the man and his sons and the bundle of sticks, where the idea is you can break one stick easily, but if you have a bunch of sticks, you can't break them, right? It's that strength through unity kind of thing. But essentially, it's the same thing at base. It is about political unity as we unify in the great glorious state. And as long as we give our individuality up to the state, then we can thrive. And that was explicitly, as I go through, that was explicitly what Mussolini was writing about in his doctrine of fascism. He was talking about there is no individual liberty. That's all garbage that was invented by these classical liberals. But no, we're directly against that. We are about the great glory of the state. And the state has liberty. And I guess individuals within the state have liberty only insofar as they are suborning themselves to the state. So it's always about state power, the power of the lawmaker, essentially, and the always implied force that is these, these days, the gun that is the end point of every law. Well, it used to be the fasci that was the end point of every law.
Well, this is what I'm showing to the audience on the screen. You'll see the presidential seal, and that in the eagle's talons is a fascia. Together we're,
technically no. Those are arrows. That doesn't count.
Thank you. Well, the fascia, this is, let's go ahead. How do you spell fascia anyway?
So fasces is Fasces.
Okay, so it's just, there you go. And this axe head, is part of it. And this is, what's all around Washington. I didn't even know it until Schiff's brother was pointing this out. And so it was a really interesting. I think he was probably at least half of the information between him and the aide to Ron Paul. I was getting education. I was like, all right. This was kind of cool. But it was an interesting experience doing that, going into the Capitol. What you realized is that how old it is, and you had these wood stairs. You have all this granite marble everywhere and so on. You have these, probably only like 2 foot wide stairs that kind of spiral up and kind of, the back end hidden, whatever the hell. And the planks were so worn from going up and down, up and down, up and down over the centuries that you could see it was down probably 2 inches. This is an old place. And when we were there before, I guess, probably most likely, in Trump's first administration, they were really doing it up, and they had the scaffolding around the Capitol. They're sprucing it up, because I noticed then this was like 09 or something like that. When we went, the railings were crumbling. Pollution and weathering or whatever. They had some work to do to get that all spruced up, because it was just crumbling as much as the city of Washington, D.C. was. And you go and the one thing that really got me was we were dropped off somewhere, and we asked the taxi driver if they could, wait here. We just need to go in. No, I can't pick up here. There's rules. I can drop you off here and I can pick you up there, but I can't pick you up. I'm going, why? I don't even care. It's Washington. That's why, So the cleanup that Trump did, very cosmetic. I mean, even Newsom will clean up San Francisco when President Xi comes in, So cleaning up Washington, Chicago, L.A., I'm not, it's better. I don't know. Usually I would say it's better than not doing it, but I'm not feeling good about this martial law, president going in city kind of thing. But all it does is opens up for if and when the Democrats ever get back in charge. I mean, man, they got a bunch of arrows in their quiver now, especially after the Letitia James thing. They'll get her on that mortgage fraud she was going after him about, and everybody. And this is one thing that Dr. Frank was going about in the Trump. We should do to them. I'm going, I don't know, man. You start doing that. Once you break that line, here we go. So I'm not seeing the future looking very well. What do you think?
I would tend to concur. Yeah, no, call me old-fashioned here in the conspiracy realist space, but I think that, the troops on the streets being called in by the president to restore order and clean up the streets. Yeah, isn't that martial law? Isn't that what we've been raging about for decades? But now, right. I don't know, Alex Jones and others who literally made documentaries warning about martial law are now cheering it on. So, I don't know. All I know is I used to be against it, and I still am. I think it's a bad idea, yeah.
I saw a Tucker Carlson interview with Alex Jones. You put Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, okay, you have my attention for a little while. So in watching that, Alex has really toned down a little bit. He's kind of, hey man, I told you it was coming. Whatever. Here we go. Now what? And I think he's, feeling that he's been vindicated kind of a little bit, but they're definitely going after him. And they're using the same precedents that they did to say, well, the judge decided, you're guilty and you owe $1 gazillion. And they went after Mike Lindell. Lindell, that does, My Pillow or whatever, really was against election fraud. Yay. I'm like, go get him. Well, they're doing everything they can to crush him and using the same technique that are just having corrupt judges just say, they go to the jury and they say, you're to award damages of this guilty person that's guilty because I just said he's guilty. And I'm going, what kind of crap is this? I don't see America surviving this kind of abuse of just office and power because they can. What do you think is in the immediate and distant future on the governance, whatever the hell is going to, USA Inc. or something? I have no idea.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, you're correct that just the precedent. It doesn't matter what you think about Alex Jones or what you think about Julian Assange or any of these characters. The fact of their incarceration and or their trials and their ridiculous $1.4 billion judgment against Alex Jones. I mean, it's off the charts insane. It's absolutely crazy. But that's the point. It is setting the precedent. So again, no matter what you think of these individuals and whatever role they're playing, at any rate, the precedent itself is the worry because, again, it just opens the floodgates for all of this in the future. Yeah, I don't know. As to the future of U.S., is that USA Inc.? I don't know. Am I supposed to care per se about that? The problem really is the disintegration of the civilization itself. That, to me, is the real issue, because if the U.S. government went away tomorrow and everyone could live in peace and happiness and rainbows, that would be great. But the way things are going, no, things are disintegrating bit by bit, and people are being weaponized essentially as agents of the deep state to go against each other, because you've learned that your neighbor who voted the wrong way in the last selection, he's the reason that everything sucks, so go slit his throat, is kind of the message of 2025. So I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not relishing it. I think things are collapsing in a bad way, which is why, I don't know, maybe people should be occupying the land?
I think something. We did, last Friday, we knew that it was going to be, a lot of rain, so I said, load up Friday, and I'll just sit in the chair all day and watch the rain, and hope Starlink, stays up. So what we did is we had Ian Davis from the United Kingdom talking about the digital ID. You will neither be able to buy nor sell nor work or whatever without the mark of the beast thing. And then Patrick Wood, technocracy.news, we're good friends. He's here in Arizona. And Aaron Day at the end. But then right before Aaron, we had Courtney Turner. Now, Courtney is, well known to a lot of the guys. And this is the first time that I had talked to her. And she was the one that was really pressing local political action. We got to vote harder. We got to, get more involved. We got to. I don't have any aversion to that. There's no central plan for freedom. You want to go yell at the school board, knock yourself out. But I'm to expect any budget of billions, trillions of dollars that they're going to go, all right, we're going to let the people kind of decide who does the budget, and we'll just wait and see what happens at the end. I mean, they wouldn't do election fraud. That'd be wrong, So I'm like, wow, who maintains that mentality? And local. So when she's talking about, and I liked her, she's very informed, and we had a good time. But I just couldn't. She was really, pressuring me, and I've been an activist for a long time. I got a whole bunch of T-shirts, man. I've been there, done that. But I'm just, what do you think is the action that we should? What responsibility do we have individually to whomever, whatever? What are we obligated to do as human beings to keep peace upon thee? I mean, what do you think we should be doing other than visiting opensourceeducation.online
right.
and informed,
Right. Well, as individuals with individual freedom, obviously I don't think that there is a positive obligation on anyone to whatever, sacrifice their life and commit themselves to the greater good of humanity or whatever for in some valiant attempt. If people want to do that, awesome, great. But no, I don't think that's a obligation on anybody in particular. Having said that, I mean, the question may be something akin to going back to like 5th century Rome and asking some Roman, the average Roman citizen, like, okay, so what are you going to do to stop the collapse of the Roman Empire? Well, I don't think that there's anything that any one individual citizen is going to do to really, change the civilizational tide that is clearly sweeping out. And if that is, I mean, obviously, if we're thinking about that in the American context and what's happening right now, again, it may be a similar thing. There are times in history where the historical events are much greater than any individual. And perhaps your duty is to yourself and your family to protect yourself and what you can in the event of, say, a civilization-wide collapse. In which case, again, I'd say occupying the land is perhaps a more fruitful use of your time. Also because even if this isn't the end and things go on and what have you, it's still setting, I think, the example for others that I think people need to see that there is action that doesn't involve, arguing with people in city council or voting harder or what have you. There are actions that can actually literally start to change the world, as in literally your actual lived environment, that may be, in the end, more consequential.
I don't mind people being active. I think they, should be informed. No, that was kind of the whole point of how this was going to work, is you be informed. But I'm not. Everybody's got a prescription for what I have to do. You're doing it wrong. I mean, you can never be anarchist enough. You can never be patriot enough. You can never be Christian enough. You can never. Yeah, but are you born again? Did you do the right ritual? I'm stop. Just stop. So it's, when we get things like, we have a story up, the real estate bubble is starting to go. And, in Florida, it always happens. I've been, paying attention for decades. And it usually is Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, Texas kind of, because my sister was a title research manager, something, whatever she did in real estate. And Texas has totally different laws. Like Houston doesn't even have zoning. It's got kind of like the conditions on the land go with it from way back, and so Texas is a little bit Lone Star state. That's why they do that. It's different the way they think, how their utility grid is separate from the rest, and they're really like this Lone Star thing, and so they kind of aren't hit as much or as often for some reason. But Nevada, Arizona, Southern California, and Florida is where the cracks hit first. It always has. And I'm looking at, our kids now, well, if you're going to sell now. If you're going to buy, wait a few months, because here it goes. Donna and I are in the market for we need a bigger truck, like a, 3/4 ton. We're pulling the different tractors and loads and all this kind of stuff. Well, we're always looking. And one of our sons is really big into diesel trucks, and, he helps Donna, shopping and all that kind of stuff. When we were doing it about a year and a half ago, they were hot. They were, going. It is about 30% less now. The used car market is starting to go. And I'm like, ooh, can we hold off a few months? Man, and that silver thing has got stupid. What's silver at now? Silver is, what are we looking at? It's over $50, and it was as high as 52 something. We got gold is holding well up, 4,200. Holy crap! So these are signs of it's not anything other than the purchasing power of the dollar. And they did the big beautiful slush fund, and I don't see. This is one time a wealthy supporter. I'm going, where do you think this is going? I'm just thinking, I don't understand them. I'm just for buying silver. And he goes, you got to ask one question. Will the United States government ever stop spending? No. The closest you even get them to say is to decrease the rate at which we're going in debt. This is becoming neon flashing obvious to the planet. And for the first time, just this last week, foreign governments, their sovereign debt is whatever it is. I'm sure that's, is bad in a lot of other places. But they hold more gold now than U.S. treasuries. And that's been like never, a long time. So,
but Ernie, what about Doge? From what I understand, we're going to save gajillions of dollars, right?
That was one thing. I saw Elon in an interview, and he goes like this. He says, what I figured out is they're never going to fix it. That's, Mars, or whatever is going to happen. But he's like, no, it's not fixable. Well, then what? What are we looking at? And who benefits? Because those in charge, those are the shiny badges. Those are up there in their suits walking around how important they are, giving speeches everywhere and going to the UN and telling them how screwed up they are and America's, the greatest whatever. And I'm going, I don't see the example that they're setting that who's listening, who's paying attention. Then you get Malay, Argentina. Ooh, they're getting their house in order. Now he's at the White House schmoozing up to Trump for some more bailout or something. So I don't know what we to make of all of this, James.
I just think, isn't it weird that the smartest genius on the planet / richest man on the planet took him, a year to come to the conclusion that dumb old Professor Corbett and Ernie Hancock have been coming to for many, many years. Yeah, right. It's not fixable because it's fixed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not broken. It's fixed, So one of the other things that and this is kind of something that would be more interesting news, but now what are we looking at here? Antifa secret weapons lair was just captured on video. We know it. It's all planned. It's all staged. It's all funded. We have as a Murgatroyd. We didn't know that, And I'm just, we'll arrest somebody, do something. So I don't care. Occupy the land, get out of the cities.
Exactly. More theatrics to get the people divided in the culture war. Great. Wonderful.
Well, where do you think this is going? They're trying to amp up with the movies. They, get Civil War. They get, Antifa fights back. The black man rises. You know where I saw this? Oh, man, this is good. I just thought of this. All right. Have you ever heard of the Turner Diaries?
I've heard of them, yeah. Yeah.
The Turner Diaries was I don't know, 70s, 80s, it was a thing, and it was about a racial civil war. And the guy that wrote it was like, yeah, we saw a trainload of black people going, and we never saw them again. I don't know. That must have been bad, that kind of thing. And one thing that was interesting in the whole book that I really remember was their cell structure. It was a militia thing, we're going to, right winger, he's read or heard of or knows how to spell Turner Diaries. But what it was is they used pagers. It was like code, and they had cell structure, and then you read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Heinlein, and that was, they had their cell structure and how it worked. And then, we had ours, we called it Golf, Gun Owners Liberation Front, Miguel Cartero, which was, Mike the Mailman, and it was all about our cell structure is the front 9 and the back 9, and it kind of, we had golf tees with golf balls and golf, Gun Owners Liberation Front. We were just trolling them and having fun with it. But man, the media picked it up. They'll run with that ball. They were liking that one, and then of course safe. Second Amendment for everyone. We did, but the it's always guns. And I saw on Rogan, this is awesome. Trump, he just does this to troll him. I know I have no idea what his real mindset is, but he goes, all these shooters are trans. They got trans boyfriends, girlfriends are going trans. They got whatever. Indoctrination, they're getting in their little club of they're going to reach nirvana if they go shoot up some Christian school or something. So he goes, we're going to have to ban guns from trans because they're mentally crazy or whatever. So what is the left to do? Do they pick that ball up? No, you can't take the guns away take guns. We're just not going to say anything, So I thought what'd you think of that tactic?
I mean, yes, it makes nice political sense, right? And of course, it plays into that left-right divide and what the teams are supposed to play. But of course, the left would say, well, no, either you blanket ban for everyone, or you don't. I mean, or no one. You don't ban specific groups, right? That's the counter argument. Again, am I supposed to care? Am I supposed to care, first of all, as a Canadian in Japan, what the American gun laws are? But secondarily, and just in, human empathy, it's dictators on high deciding what can and cannot be done. And all Trump is doing, of course, is setting the precedent that, yes, with the stroke of the presidential pen, the Second Amendment can be removed from citizens at will. Okay, yay, wonderful. I hope it goes through, guys. It'll never be used against us.
Right. That was something that was interesting I learned later on. I was Anthony Quinn. What was his name? Anthony. He was a libertarian. He was one of the Libertarian Institutes, so on. And he wrote a book. It was a textual book. I mean, it was referenced. It was one of those Corbett things. And it was all on habeas corpus. And what I didn't know is that habeas corpus can be suspended whenever it's inconvenient in the Constitution. Well, we don't have to if we don't want to. And I'm going, what the hell good is that? When you guys don't want to do it and produce the body, hey, we're so-and-so, that's when we need it. And we get, here today we had, let me show it here. We had Watch Live, President Trump and FBI Director Kash Patel to hold press conference at 3 p.m. Eastern today. Did you watch it? Do you know about it? Did you see anything?
Absolutely not.
So we don't know nothing about it. But I did see Victoria's Secret's fashion show is back. Woo, it's super sexy now. Yeah, we're going to go super sexy. We're pushing against.
I just again hope people understand that the culture war nonsense is distracting them from the fact that Victoria's Secret is Leslie Wexner, aka the funder of Epstein, right? So, yay, go out and support Victoria's Secret, guys. What could be bad about that? Oh, wait. Again, it's just getting people distracted by the culture war nonsense to not really understand what's really happening behind the scenes.
Barack Obama is coming out quite a bit. I don't know who else. I don't think they got really very deep of a bench. Not anybody gives a crap about anybody. But he's up. The Republicans, they're going to steal seats by rigging the elections by not letting our illegal immigrants vote. I mean, it's going to be something. He's really coming out after it. I'm feeling an attempt. There has been for a long time since we saw Joaquin Phoenix and Joker at the end of 19. When I saw him, I'm like, what the crap is that? And then you saw it coming during COVID and all the burning in Portland and all that kind of stuff's going on even now. So I'm just going, they're really thinking there's going to be a civil war. They're paying for it. You know, there's going to be, and then people are going to what? It's going to be a short one, or it's going to be, we don't care. What if they had a civil war and nobody came? I mean, what do you think?
That would be nice. Yeah, I mean, the point has been made many times when this idea comes up. I mean, can you imagine the average, not to put too fine a point on it, the average overweight American struggling to, get out of their walker, let alone to actually, foment some civil war. But I don't know. Again, I'm not on the ground. You're the one on the ground there. You know the culture and what people are thinking and feeling more than I do. So I
doubt it. One of the things, there was it's a regular host. He's popular. We posted a lot of his stuff, and he was going, "The collapse has begun. What comes after America?" And it was like, I don't know, a little bit less than an hour. And he's an economics guy and does a lot of tech interviews and so on. And I thought he had a very reasonable, take on everything, but it required an educated populace, getting learnified by, Professor Corbett, to know what the hell is going on and then do what? I mean, after they get all Corbettized, Professor Corbett explains it to everybody, you're expecting what to happen? They're going to what with that information?
Make utopia, of course.
Of course. Of course. Freedom's the answer. What's the question?
Well, to a certain extent, I don't feel it's necessarily my job to tell people what to do with their lives, but I hope I can inform them with real information that can give them a better perspective, at least on what's happening, so that they can make a more informed choice about what to do with their lives. Having said that, yeah, I think, obviously, as you say, freedom's the answer. What's the question? I would just prefer if we even moved in the direction of liberty, let alone actually achieving true individual freedoms. Having said that, the point has been made many times, and it's a valid point. You'll never have a better society than the level of moral framework that society has. And in a society where people generally are cooperative and working together and want to, work for the betterment of each other, you're going to have an overall better outcome than in a atomized, divided, individualistic, and very selfish society with no moral compass that has completely rejected all the, the old moral, the old moral truths, and rejected the religious or whatever background that has stapled that down for thousands of years. People are rejecting that wholesale, and what kind of society could you possibly construct from such an atomized and selfish group of people?
Well, what do you think JFK meant, John Kennedy, president, when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country? What did he mean by that?
Well, I actually just played that clip in my fascism episode because it strikes me that certainly, at least the way that it's framed, it is about subordinating yourself to the state and the glory of the state. But let's imagine that this wasn't the U.S. president talking obviously in a nation-state framework, talking about, your community, and maybe that you should be oriented to what's best for building up your community. And I wouldn't dispute that so heavily. Again, I would say there's no positive obligation on any individual to do anything for the greater good, what have you, because that is always the cudgel that is used to rope people into all sorts of horrendous things that they wouldn't do. But, it's for the greater good. Oh, okay. Having said that, I think there's obviously a sense in which people's, this is why the individual versus collective debate is so stupid and always gets stuck on the stupidest terms, is because people think when I advocate for individual rights, well, not every person is an individual that can just completely survive by themselves. You might as well go live in the woods. I don't think that's what it means. I think as individual human beings, we are also a species that is clearly motivated to be social and to work in community groups. And I think that is a natural and normal part of human behavior. And to the extent that that can be fostered and encouraged, that's to the good. And that's, I think, exactly and precisely why the social engineering over the past at least half century, probably more, has been to break those bonds of social connection. And if people want a thoroughgoing examination of that, Robert Putnam, I believe, wrote not Bowling for Columbine, that was Michael Moore, Bowling Alone. I think he wrote that something like 20, 30 years ago. And even at that time, he was talking about the complete disintegration of the social capital of the United States, let alone other places around the world, and the breakdown of all sorts of community groups and community associations and everything that you can think of, from church associations to bowling leagues and everything else. There has been a complete gutting out of that social capital in the U.S. over the past 70, 80, 90, 100 years. And I think that is part of an intentional effort. I think there has
intentional. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think there has been an effort to atomize people and to make them more dependent on the state thereby. You're not working with your neighbors. You don't even know your neighbors. You now live in a apartment block where you're lucky to know your neighbor's name, let alone actually socialize with them, let alone form community groups that will actually help each other and take care of each other rather than waiting on the nanny state to take care of you for you.
One of the other things that a couple of stories that kind of dovetail a little bit, the demographic time bomb threatening the retirement of the boomers. There's not enough, immigration or babies being born or what it's going to support. And we knew this. This was something, in the early 2000s. I remember I was golfing with a friend that, has a bunch of nickels to rub together. And he said, you need to read this one book. And it was all about demographics. It was baked in the cake. This is not going to sustain itself. It could not. The math didn't work. Then you got Catherine Austin Fitts going on about how central banks plan to control you. And she can tell me how, but, it's not like I'm surprised. And then, we got things like this story, the stock market. There was a trader that made $192 million last week, right before Trump does some, thing or something. And then we had the same thing that happened, 9/11, that you've documented a great deal. And do you know who it is? Yeah. You doing anything? Telling anybody doing it? Not so much. We forgot. It was next to my heart. I lost it, So you can't count on them to do anything other than cover themselves. And now we got Israel and their supporters, gazillionaires, and you can name them all, whatever, I don't care. But they're buying up the media, the alternative media, because they've lost the other media. It's like they did. Well, where are the people's eyeballs and ears now? Okay, we'll buy that, And I don't see it really working. I mean, not for any sustained time, but they're only looking at the next election. They just want to control for the next election. Then we got RFK Jr. is going, we need to have medical schools teaching people about prevention and about this, we're going from the state, we're going to, well, you think we don't know? I am so discouraged by whatever resistance there is. They believe it to be political as opposed to being an add to your community and building which is why we're doing what we're doing. We're doing everything we can to build up these connections geographically and who can we help. I got, one neighbor that he needs help, whatever. Somebody's got a tractor. Not a problem. I'm there, man. We're going to take care of business. And this is not just, okay, I want you to comment on this. I saw, I can't remember, I see so much stuff, but it was going on about cooperation, about how animals and certainly humans cooperate. Why does this antelope, bite off the ticks on all the other antelope? Why does this monkey groom this one monkey and that one? It doesn't really serve them, It's because cooperation is the best in your best interest because you're going to need it. Somebody, scratch their back, they'll scratch yours kind of deal. So I'm definitely not anti-community, but I'm not, given a shiny badge that, to delegate authority to somebody that's always going to be taken over by the bad guys because they're not limited by any moral behavior that they wouldn't do anything to get the shiny badge and vote on the budget,
Yeah.
So comment on that. I just want to get your perspective.
Well, I think you're reflecting the difference between the horizontal system of community versus the top-down imposed system. So, yeah, why do we need the centralized small few who deign to rule over everyone in order to keep us safe, rather than relying on the horizontal structures of people around us to take care of each other? And those horizontal structures are the natural organic structures that form. It's whatever, the monkey grooming behavior, or the human equivalent thereof, that doesn't have to be imposed by some top-down authority figure. It's no, we know that we need each other to survive, so we help each other. And that obviously was, I would say, more part of the American spirit back in the day, the human spirit for much of human history, before things started to become more centralized and organized and top-down hierarchical. And it's unfortunate to me that enough people have essentially had that history drummed out of them, that the thought of getting rid of that hierarchical structure is, oh my God, chaos, disorder, anarchy. Oh no, we can't possibly have that because the horizontal structures have been largely forgotten. And, there are many ways that you can look at that, including, again, things like healthcare. Again, so many people around the world are now dependent on these systems of top-down control where, don't worry, the government is going to, fleece everybody for a little bit and then put it into this big pot, and then they'll apportion out healthcare in one way or another, whether it's Medicare in the States or, Health Canada or what have you. To the point that people forget that, 100, 150 years ago, those sorts of governmental structures largely did not exist. How could people possibly have found a way to take care of each other? Oh, there were these guilds and associations, and everyone was part of these associations that you would voluntarily join and be part of, and that they would help all the members get their health care, even if they had some sort of accident or injury or something. Wow. It's almost like these structures just arise naturally, but now that we're in this top-down system, people can only ever imagine it coming from government.
We're starting to get a shift in attitudes. Here's something. 77% of U.S. counties record notable declines in child vax rates. They're like, we're good. Well, we got to up that. So then Trump goes and gets his vax. You think he really did? I mean, say what kind of Pfizer deal did he make with that one? And I really, one, I don't care, but I really, he can do whatever the hell he wants. It does not make me. Then we have, the testosterone levels of a baby bird, America's health crisis. Well, it seems like everything you look at of any consequence is attacking the family. It's attacking the primal unit. The procreation, go forth and multiply, having, a home to where you have gender differentiation, intentionally, biologic. I mean, it was there on purpose. There was a reason. It's to perpetuate the species, to raise competent adults that will go forth and, be a good spouse and, have more children. I mean, it's just, so I really would, have you done a documentary on the intentional targeting of the family? This kind of, the Corbett thing on family dynamics, the targeting by the Marxist revolutions, the targeting of, I don't know, they'll call it patriarchal, I don't care, family. Is that something you've done a lot of research on?
I have not done a documentary specifically on that, no. But I agree that there is definitely a lot of meat on those bones to take a look at. As I say, I think that the dissolution of social capital has been part of an intentional construct. So, yeah, it would be worth putting some of that on the record.
Well, you did your most recent you have here is we got the U.S. government fascist? Questions for Corbett. Okay. Tell me about that. The elevator speech, that one, so people go watch it.
Right. That was the one we were just talking about with the fascist symbols strewn around Washington and where they really come from and what they really signify.
Well, what do they?
Well, the spoiler is, yes, it is fascist, but but the point is the real meaning of fascism is about subordinating the individual to the state. And you know what? Most statists are fascist by that definition.
And this other one, we got BlackRock and Blackstone buying up local power. These are things, I hear it a lot when I going around talking to friends and family. They're really concerned about this energy thing, and I'm going, well, my batteries are full.
Yeah, this is the point, right? Might
really
be a good time to flash back to that Solutions Watch that I had with Bob Anderson about, how to set up your own grid. Because it can
right, and he's a lot better now than he was then. Oh, just last week, the property that was next to him, they some developer bought it and built 5 big houses, cookie cutter of something, and they brought in the power lines. And power lines. I go, Bob, you got a power line right there. You don't have to pay $30,000. You just give me some power cable, and we're done. And he goes, nah, I'm good. But it does increase the value of his maybe. I mean, I don't know what comes with that, But I'm really seeing, certainly here in Arizona, you see a lot of, solar panels on homes. But mostly, of course you should have a lot of solar. I mean, they make money until they don't, But certainly here in Arizona, but I found out what it's for. It's all the data centers that are here.
Yeah.
They go, we got the solar for the data center. We'd be surveilling your ass, So
right.
I'm
this is the new push. It's for the data centers. It's to power the AI. And suddenly you find all of these green energy advocates suddenly don't have a voice in Washington anymore, or places like this, because they don't care. No, sorry, big tech now needs to start building nuclear plants to just power their AI behemoths. So too bad for you guys.
One of the things that it was, kind of gives you a grin was, the White House has been laying off a bunch. Okay, we got to shut down. Schumer shut down. You guys are shut down. Good. We get to fire a bunch of people, and we reduce government. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I believe him. One thing, Roger Ver, they finally took the cloud over him of, putting him in jail. You pay $48 million and we're done. So Roger and I
they get their pound of flesh in the end, huh?
Yeah. This is what happened. I go, hey man, sounds like a really big shoe, because we did a show right on hijacking Bitcoin just like a couple of weeks before they arrested him in Spain. Yeah. And these guys always get in trouble when they talk to me. But I go like this. I said, we need to do a big show, man. I want to definitely talk about a lot of this stuff, which we had in the past. But I wanted to get the behind the scenes negotiation, whatever. And he goes, Ernie, part of the deal, 3 years. Why 3? When Trump's out of office, he's not allowed to. That's part of the deal. Shut your freaking face while we whatever. And the Trump family, they're over $1 billion invested in whatever different crypto. They're doing something, So and stablecoin pegged to the dollar. What kind of stupid thing was that? Do gold or silver, something, anything else. But then I'm not ready to throw up my hands. I want to do what I can do. With ability comes some responsibility. I mean, you can't sit there and watch the world burn and just roast marshmallows. But that's why the Occupy the Land thing is such a big deal with me. I can't think of anything better. And, which dovetails into your thing, the open source education.online. I mean, you and I and a lot of other people we know are actually doing something. What else? I don't know. What are some of the things you think?
I think this is it. I'm trying to get people to understand why they might want to occupy the land, and I think you could be the one to show them how. Although I haven't seen a lot of video updates from you and things along those lines, but I understand you're doing actual work. So
no, we have a weekly video.
No,
yeah, you go occupytheland.org and. It's on. We're
Here's
even on
thing.
YouTube now.
Okay,
and
how do I follow this? Do you have an RSS feed? That's what I need.
Well, shit. Yeah. I guess that's exactly what we're going to do for freaking James Corbett. I'll get an RSS feed to do it. This is, here, I'll pull it up. So So here's the site. Now what happens, we have all the videos that come out,
Yeah.
Donna and I out there doing whatever. But we have a Telegram feed that as I'm doing stuff, Donna and I are constantly adding to it all day, every day.
Yeah.
So you can get,
well, that's the problem. I'm not on Telegram.
Right,
But, if you make an RSS post, at least with those videos, I would definitely keep track of them.
Okay, well, I'll tell Derek and Miranda to set it up. What am I doing? Subscribe to an RSS feed that goes straight to the video page? Or
You could do a video RSS feed, yeah. Or I don't know how you've got it set up, but if there are posts to the website, you could just make it every post to the website.
Okay. Well, we have all these videos, and pictures and stuff. Yeah, no, it's freaking rained out here, and damn, stuff growing. Yeah, like these are the augered holes that I do to saturate the land with the water. It's interesting. Like here I'm building out the workshop in the shipping container, and here's Donna and I doing the check dams, backing up the water. And
I see you've got the transcripts here in the video posts. That's cool.
I do?
I'm just clicking on the latest one, Cooler Days Ahead, and there's a full transcript underneath, time-stamped transcript.
Really? Yeah, that's right. Miranda did that. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Because see, here's the transcript. Yeah, okay. Yeah, waiting on you now. I mean, it's there. But
now that I know about it, I guess I should have been checking the website, but I didn't know.
Well, it is interesting. It is starting to take up. That's another thing. I want to ask you this while I got you. We have seen, and I don't care because I don't check. I don't let the algorithm and their metrics, kind of determine what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But we've exploded. We're like 4 or 5 times more traffic. And I said, check the bots, man. What the, is this just, pinging from trolls and bots, whatever, Derek? What it is because we started interfacing on social media more with this stuff.
Yeah.
And I did it because after Ron Paul's birthday party a couple months ago, a lot of the guys were there. They're going, yeah, it's getting easier. They're not coming at us as much and everything. I go, all right, I'll turn them on because we have all the channels. I just don't participate. And we do the IPFS thing in our site. So I go, all right, we'll start doing that. So that's one of the things, the staff, they'll start, pushing some social media.
Yeah.
Well, of course, wham, all right, here it comes. You need to be participating more in the social media, Ernie. That's what you need to be doing. And then all of a sudden, they start all this crap. And I'm going, yeah, they're just data scraping our supporters, us, so I don't know. What's your thought on social? I can see how if you're a 25-year-old and you just did your podcast, you go, ooh, what did I do to get that? Oh, I want to talk. I remember it was the Mandela effect. A good friend of mine, great, early on farming and homestead. This is, 15 years ago, and he was making a big deal out of it and doing it, but he didn't mention the Mandela effect of something. One time, boom, 70,000 hits that day. Went, woo, guess what I'm talking about now? That's how they control you.
Yep.
And if you're paying attention to that, that's how they do it. It's punishment.
No, that is always, the fear is that you're going to get enticed by the phony internet points to, oh my God, now I have to structure everything around that, which is why I try to look at them as little as possible. But yeah, no, it's funny because I think I'm in the same boat as you. I exist on social media insofar as I post videos to various sites, but I don't have an Twitter, X, I don't have Instagram, or I'm not on TikTok or what have you. And I know I could expand the audience by being there and interacting and posting memes and doing all that stuff. I don't care. I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm here to do. And I certainly don't want to get into the audience capture mode in which, well, I don't really care about Charlie Kirk, but my God, everyone's talking about him, so I better start putting out podcasts about that. No, once I start doing that, what's even the point of being here? No, I need to keep myself focused as much as possible, so I am not really on social media, and I don't really interact with people that way.
This is how, okay, I gotta come clean with James here. Today, I have all Facebook accounts, had for a long time, and our family does whatever, and they send me Instagrams and I don't open them. I just look at Donna. She showed me if it's something I care about, and whatever. Like, I just don't interact with that crap. Well, because we're looking for, a new vehicle, a truck that we have to pull the tractor around and doing whatever. We're going to be helping a lot of neighbors. And I need the rough roads. I need a bigger truck because I had one, a 2500 big Ram diesel that the engine went. So I'm going, all right, so we're, getting that fixed or getting another one. We're kind of, working that. Well, my son is a big diesel guy, and he's sending all kinds of stuff. And Donna's like, we need to look at it. Well, you have Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook Marketplace is like the new Craigslist, I guess. It's you got a lot of stuff on there. They use it. So they're sending me all these links. Well, I can't look at them. I don't want to. I'm like, oh, come on, Dad. Do you want me to help him? All right. So I load the Facebook app onto my Samsung, the Android, for the first time ever. And it was hey, Ernie, it's got all my logos and everything from way back in the day, and they update. Oh, you wanna get more trap and do that and do it, and all you got to do and click and send. I'm like, whoa! I just want to look at a post from my son. Holy crap! Then you start getting email, you getting SMS, you start getting. I'm going, damn! This is how they do it. Yes, of course that's what they do. They get it, and they just occupy your time.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to look at was a truck ad.
And occupy your phone. Yeah, imagine all the trackers and everything. You can access to everything.
Well, they give you kind of opt-out options of what you can, can't, and if you want to kind of no, skip, never mind, next. I can't, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, once you and then the big thing was, you want to log in with Google? You need to log in with Google. Oh, you want to log in? Just do your Facebook Google thing. We know everything. And because I've been so insulated from this stuff because I don't deal with it. Yeah. Today when I'm like, holy crap. And they do that with every app. They do everything. And it's a carrot and stick. And the fact that I did that, I guarantee we maxed out on, I don't know, I think back in the day you could have 5,000 or 6,000 friends or something like that. Well, that blazed through. I don't know these people. I'm like, friend my ass. The .mil account. I mean, I just, this is so, it's what we're up against. And I don't know what the solution is other than those of us that understand it, create our own mesh networking community, local, I know you. Yes, you are my friend. You're one of like 150 of anybody I can even remember their name, Other than that, your brain can't comprehend that many. Yep. They're not friends. Yep. So, and I remember, you remember MySpace? Did you ever do MySpace?
I did briefly before it went under, yeah.
Okay, what happened was my kids were all into this, and it would have your favorite books, favorite movies, favorite lines, favorite quotes, favorite music, and there was copyright. What's that? I mean, you could just throw anything up there. Rupert Murdoch bought it for like $360 million back in the day when that was real money. And I'm going, damn, why? Because of all that data. Mm-hmm. And then whenever you went on and you started, you had your first friend. And it was that guy kind of looking over his shoulder, the guy that started MySpace. Yeah. You had a friend. He loved you, and he was going to sell you to Rupert Murdoch along with the database. Mm-hmm. So I've old enough to have been through all this and watch it through my kids' eyes, and now my grandkids and Israel, they're all happy they got TikTok now, or at least supporters. So, do you think TikTok is going to maintain its occupation in the minds of the people, or is that just going to get replaced with something?
You're asking the wrong person, because I cannot for the life of me fathom how it got popular in the first place. It is so completely anathema to everything that I think, or the way that I think, or the things
YouTube
that
Shorts.
I'm interested in. Yep.
You start a YouTube short and kind of, I'm interested in canoe building or whatever the hell, and then all of a sudden, it's an hour later, and I got to like, nope.
It is brain rot, and I don't understand its popularity. So why does it have any influence over the young people? I couldn't tell you. I am officially an old fuddy-duddy, but maybe that's the way it's meant to be.
That's the way I like it.
Exactly.
Before you go, I wanted to have you share with us what your next project is, and the one that you were talking about before. Ooh, my really big show, my really big project. Was that the psychology thing? What was it that you?
Oh,
were
yeah.
on?
So the psychology documentary was something that me and Brock had been working on for 2 years, if you can believe it. So yeah, that was a pretty big one, but it's already a digital fart in the wind. People have forgotten it's even there anymore. So I'm already moving on to the next
traffic?
thing.
I was enamored by it.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it's a good documentary, and I hope people will spread it. But at this point, I'm relying on people out there who know about it to spread the word, because the algorithms are all maxed out and it's done its thing. Having said that, what I'm working on next is a piece for Whitney Webb's print magazine, which I believe will be coming out either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. At any rate, I am working feverishly to get my article for that done. And it is going to be about the topic of pre-crime. And so let's talk about that next time, if we remember.
Pre-crime. Oh, how could I possibly forget? This is pre-crime. Here it comes. Minority Report. Okay, before you... Minority Report, I remember when that came out. It was a whole campaign about them actually doing it. It was the trailer for the movie was not really Tom Cruise in the movie Minority Report. It was all about pre-crime and that they were doing it. It got everybody all, woo, got the buzz. It was like they were Cindy Sweetie or something, with, American Eagle, the Gene, everybody, what the crap? And then it was a movie. And it's all that predictive programming stuff. Here she comes. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. Make sure you check out opensourceeducation.online. It's curated stuff that right there. And the psychology thing has a bunch of shows and different things over the years that, he's worked on and done that definitely dovetail into getting an understanding of what's up, because you need it, because here it comes. Thanks for coming on. It's always good to talk to you, James. Peace, brother.
Yep. Appreciate it. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.